Hey, good evening, Mick Good Luck. I'm going to read and post a little I thought you might like for listening while you're driving. I'm going to read from Getting Real, 10 True Skills You Need to Live Authentic Life, an Authentic Life. I'm going to start with the introduction. As you, the reader, and I, the author, embark on this exploration of how to live authentically, I'd like to share some experiences that have led me to be so passionate about this topic. I grew up in a happy home with wonderful parents and 3 siblings who loved and supported me. And still, I'm as screwed up as everybody else. My ability to be authentically myself started getting compromised just after I was born. That was when I started taking a bunch of false beliefs about how the world works and how people are. From piecing together the details of my early life, based on my parents' accounts, here's how I figured that happened. The story of my personality. When my mom tried to nurse me, her milk did not come down. As a hungry infant, I sucked and sucked harder and harder, trying to get the nourishment I needed. No matter how hard I sucked, nothing came. I felt frustrated and empty, and there seemed to be nothing I could do to escape that feeling of emptiness. I was afraid, bewildered, alone, and in pain. And my mom felt pain too, but hers was the pain of having her nipples ravaged. So she took me from her breast and put the bottle into my mouth. This critical incident created in my little mind what I now call false belief number 1. If you express your wants too strongly, you'll get punished. My mom still held me in her arms often, but when our bodies were close, she could feel in me a restless energy that never seemed to be satisfied. She tried to comfort me and to help me feel safe, but her efforts were futile. Since I was her firstborn, she was quite vulnerable to self-doubts about her adequacy as a mother. Sensing this, I feared making her feel even more uncomfortable. So I tried to deal with my restless dissatisfaction myself. The solution I discovered was to sleep most of the time, which kept everybody happy. Thus evolved false belief number 2. You need to shut down your feelings to avoid making others uncomfortable. Then my father entered the picture. He and I bonded right away. He loved to hold and play with me. My favorite game was when he would capture me, surrounding me gently with his big body so I couldn't get away. This game was scary in a really delightful way. About that time, World War II was being fought and my dad was called into service. I didn't know what was going on as my parents prepared for his departure, but I could sense in my mom a deep sadness as she anticipated her loss. On a gray day in November 1944, the 3 of us drove to the train station to see my dad off. I was pretty silent until the very last moment before he got on the train. At that point, I put all the pieces together and realized what was happening. As he slowly walked away from us, I started screaming, "Daddy, don't go! Daddy, don't go!" But in spite of my protest, he was on his way, and false belief number 3 was hatched. No matter how much you want something, even if you holler about it, you won't get it. This is especially true when you really, really want it. My mom and I survived just fine. Eventually, Dad came home and our life became routine again. At this point, I was starting grammar school. For me, it was a time of being very observant and curious about everything and everyone, and being fascinated with the similarities and differences among people. I noticed something about my dad that disturbed me greatly. He had what we called in the family his temper. He was embarrassed and apologetic about this characteristic, but that didn't keep me from feeling fearful every time he raised his voice at me. "Susan, stop your youncing." I can still hear him snapping at me when my demands for attention would start to bother him. Even though belief number 1 and 2 prohibited bothering others, those beliefs only applied to the really deep and important needs. I could still be incessant about petty things. My dad's temper flare-ups scared me. even though I know now that they were relatively mild compared to those of some other dads. But I was becoming a smart little kid, so instead of feeling my fear, I quickly learned that it was more important to have inner conversations about how stupid his outbursts were. I recall thinking to myself, he got so worked up over such a small thing. Once or twice I even voiced my criticism. My dad was going on loudly about what could have happened as a result of something I'd done, and I had the audacity to shout back, well, it could have happened, but it didn't. Probably the second or third time I did that, I got a slap across the mouth. Out of those experiences came false beliefs, 4 and 5. You can avoid painful feelings by becoming judgmental or critical of others. And it's not safe to talk back to an angry person. It's better just to keep cool. Along the path of my life, I've picked up a few more dysfunctional beliefs. But these 5 will do to give you an idea of how I learned that it's not safe to feel and express your true feelings. My story also shows how I learned strategies for staying safe and in control, by not expressing wants or angers, by being judgmental when I was really afraid. I spent the years that followed perfecting these strategies. The result was that even though there was a deep feeling, caring, loving, hurting, fearful human being in there somewhere, what I mostly showed the world during much of my life was the competent, intelligent, helpful, over-controlled good girl. This is why I'm so passionate about the practice of getting real, because for so much of my life, I occupied only a few of the many rooms of my emotional house. As a psychotherapist for the past 34 years, I have, of course, observed that, and I'm not alone in this game of limiting ourselves in the interest of staying safe. It is part of the human journey to start out whole, then to continually cut off parts of ourselves in response to real or imagined pains, and to spend the rest of our lives searching for what we have cut off, buried, and forgotten about. Even entire cultures seem to operate within a very narrow band of the total human experience. Thus, we project onto others what we cannot feel, experience, and own up to in ourselves. War and conflict are the result, when all the while we long for peace. Getting real is about reclaiming, reviving, and re-experiencing these buried parts of ourselves. In my own journey, I have studied and applied many methods towards this end. After years of exploration, I have found that the quickest and best route to wholeness is honest communication with yourself and others. Of course, in attempting to follow this simple prescription, you will come up against all the ways you have cut yourself off from the truth of your existence. So honest communication becomes your awareness practice, your vehicle for noticing what you avoid, your irrational fears, and how you go about avoiding it, in parentheses, your control patterns. Using honesty to stay with your experience. Honest communication is not only the quickest, most direct path to wholeness, it is also the least expensive. Without spending years in a therapist's office, you can learn a set of communication practices that will lead you to the truth of your present experience and out of the morass of judgments, generalizations, shoulds, withholdings, assessments, and exclamations about why you are the way you are. These practices are a way of using language to help you stay with your present felt experience. What you see, hear, smell, feel, remember, sense, and intuit. You can learn these practices in a relatively short time period, since so many other explorers have already charted the way. Buddhist meditation practice, Gestalt therapy, Jungian analysis, sensory awareness, Reichian, and bioenergetic bodywork. These are the main underpinnings of the work that I call getting real. The reason honest communication works so well as a growth path is that most of the time when you go deeply and patiently into an experience, feeling it fully without escaping into a control pattern, it changes. I'm not kidding. The way out is to go deeply in. You will discover the truth for yourself as you engage in the practices. I call them the 10 truth skills suggested in this book. Some of these skills take quite a bit of courage. Others actually ease the way and make honesty less threatening. When you use them in combination, you will find that they support one another and make whole process of being honest quite enlivening and less frightening than you might imagine. The getting real process will go faster if you have a skilled coach or a teacher to help you avoid the pitfalls of self-deception, and it absolutely requires at least one or two committed others who agree to undertake the journey with you. So after you read the book, be sure to share it with anyone who might be a likely candidate for the role of committed other. Getting real has worked and still works for me and for hundreds of others I have coached in this method. As I continue to do this work, I keep learning that we human beings have far more potential than we give ourselves credit for. There is so much more that we could feel, so much more reality that we could perceive, so much more excitement and energy that we could contain and vibrate with. All we need is genuine curiosity and openness to experiment, and a willingness to experience with awareness whatever comes up. The prize you will attain for this effort is a deep and abiding trust in yourself and in life that no one can ever take away from you. Getting real develops your self-awareness. You engage with others in what I call social meditation practice, in which you support one another in unhooking from your self-image and your idea about being better, and risk being seen just as you are. The result is self-realization. Where's my water? Quick sip of water. Okay. Getting real. Where were we? There we are. Getting real develops your self-awareness. You engage with others in what I call a social meditation practice, in which you support one another in unhooking from your self-image and your ideas about being better, and risk being seen just as you are. The result is self-realization, making real the parts of yourself that you thought you had to hide to survive. And I mean all the parts, not just the petty ones. Self-realization also leads you back to a simpler, direct awareness of yourself as a being increasingly free of your personal story and the limiting beliefs you've picked up along the way. But before you can be free of these, you need to be willing to explore, experiment, and discover where your natural flow of energy is blocked. And to free yourself, you need to experience just how unfree you are. We're all hypocrites. As far back as I can remember, I've been on a campaign to expose the fact that we're all hypocrites to one degree or another. We live in a world that challenges our sense of integrity at every turn. We say we value a clean environment, but we drive cars and we ride in airplanes. We say we value democracy, but we secretly want our own way. We say we value honesty, but we frequently withhold our true feelings to avoid conflict. We all preach one thing and practice another. Learning to live in a gap between our ideals and our reality seems to be the koan of our age. K-O-A-N, koan. This process is the true meaning of sobriety, the ability to honestly face the reality of our predicament without projecting blame onto some outside force and without looking for some magical rescue from the challenge of living with integrity. In my years of experience as a psychotherapist, teamwork consultant, speaker, and seminar leader, I've found that it's much more rewarding in the long run to notice and soberly accept what is, than to focus so much of our attention on what should be. Shoulds prevent us from seeing how our life really is and from taking appropriate actions. Shoulds are pretenses. Telling yourself that you should be more generous is a way of hoodwinking yourself and others into thinking that you want to be more generous. Shoulds always justify not taking action in a situation that has become intolerable. He shouldn't treat me that way, so you focus on what he should or shouldn't do instead of your own anger, and you get to feel wronged, righteous, and stuck. Shoulds keep you from owning your power to create the life you want. They keep you in denial about your actual feelings and situations. Getting real serves as an antidote to the sort of self-deception that keeps people feeling powerless and overwhelmed. Once you stop trying to get reality to conform to your idea and ideals and let yourself see, feel, and experience what is, you will feel more empowered to deal effectively with your present situation. You won't be stuck anymore or clogged up with unfinished business. You'll be participating in the vast evolutionary dance called life. You'll learn to trust yourself to handle whatever comes your way because you won't be limited by your ideas about what should happen. You'll be open to discovering what each new situation brings out of you. You'll be living your uniqueness. Your path will have heart. In this process, you may fall down and get hurt at times, like when you're learning to ride a bicycle. But when you get up and dust yourself off, you'll see that along with the pain, there's a beautiful new experience that you might never have had if you hadn't been open to it. You're okay just the way you are. From leading Getting Real workshops, I've learned how free people feel when they notice, feel, and express their own inner experience, agreeing for a day or two to set aside their normal conventions of politeness and appropriateness. Most people are amazed to discover that they feel okay just as they are, warts and all. My purpose in writing this book is to help you see wherever you are on your life path. You may as well relax and stop trying to be somewhere else. This is what is. I enjoin you to stop fighting what is, so that you can 1. Relax and enjoy yourself. Deal realistically and creatively with the truth of your existence instead of waiting to take action until you're better or until someone else does what they're supposed to do. 3. Allow yourself to be seen and loved, realizing that you're most lovable when you're most transparent. 4. Be present to each moment of your life, uninhibited by your judging and comparing mind telling you that you're not enough. I'm going to read that again. 4. Be present to each moment of your life, uninhibited by your judging and comparing mind telling you that you're not enough. 5. Trust yourself to cross future bridges when you come to them, rather than worry about something you can't predict or control. 6. Feel peaceful and self-accepting most of the time. The work of Getting Real is about paying attention to and communicating about what you notice, your bodily sensations, your feelings, your thoughts, and the things going on around you. When I use the term work, I did not mean to imply struggle. I did not mean exerting. I did not mean exerting. I did not mean working against myself. If you notice yourself doing these things, pay attention. Your power to heal any tendency to struggle against yourself lies in your ability to be aware of what is, without praise or blame. The simple act of being aware gives you tremendous freedom. Your freedom will be even greater if you share with others how you experience your awareness. I like to say that freedom's just another word for nothing left to hide. I invite you to come out of hiding and to reconnect with your essential freedom, aliveness, and to trust yourself in yourself and others. to help create a playful, non-threatening environment in which to practice getting real. I've invented 2 card games. I think it's important to enjoy ourselves while we're learning and working. The first one, the Getting Real card game, can be played with several friends or family members. It's a great way to have fun while practicing the 10 truth skills. The other, called the Truth Work at the card game, is for people in the workplace. I've been using this game successfully in conjunction with my team building and communication training business for several years. We can order these games from me by using the order form in the appendix. How this book is organized, and that's all. This is almost the end, and then chapter 1 starts. How this book is organized. The main body of the book, chapters 2 through 11, are devoted to describing the 10 truth skills and showing you how and when to use them. Each of these chapters includes a self-assessment quiz to help you see how comfortable you are in the domain of truth skill being considered. In the domain of truth skill being considered. The chapter also contains stories of real people whose names and identifying details have been altered, who have learned to use these skills successfully, as well as exercises you can do alone or with a partner to give you practice using each skill. Each chapter concludes with a short summation of key points under the heading, in a nutshell. In the appendix at the end of the book contained further resources to support the process of getting real. In Appendix A, you'll find a list of related books and seminars. Appendix B contains the communication guidelines that I use in my seminars with instructions on how you can start your own group using these guidelines. And Appendix C, descriptions of the 2 interactive card games I've created that you can purchase and play with your friends or coworkers. It also contains information and a page that you can use for ordering. All right. All right. Well, hey, Mick, good luck. That is the end of the foreword. So I'm going to call that one section and upload that. And I may get chapter 1 read tonight. Peace and love, girl. I miss you.